Welcome back to an episode of Clutching Sports. I'm with my host, Rohan Chakravarthi. How's it going, Rohan?
Doing good, man. How's it going?
Doing good, man. Doing good. So right before we went live, Rohan was asking me about the new logo. The other logo was just a temporary one. Finally got the Clutching Sports logo, DNA strand in there and everything for Clutch Gene. Now, Rohan, how are you been? I know you've been pretty busy going back and forth, Wisconsin and Bay Area, right? Or no?
Yeah, I did a little bit of that. We're back in the Bay until I got to go back in in about a month or so. But no, settling in, excited for training camp. We've got it in 1 week. That's the exciting part, of the off season, the part that we've kind of all been waiting for. I'm glad to try and go out there and just see what this team looks like ahead of the 24 season.
Well, the first thing that happened, like right before camp, right? Like obviously rookies reported yesterday, which is great to have the rookies report, but a not so good thing that happened with the rookies reporting yesterday was obviously the 49ers placing Ricky Pearsall on the non-football injury list. Obviously, it's been reported as not major. It's something that's a little bit more minor, which is a good thing, but it's never a good sign to have your rookies um, on the already on the injured list or reserve list, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But also yesterday, before we even get into talking about camp battles, Brayden Aiyuk requests a trade this week. What are your thoughts on Brayden Aiyuk's trade request, as well as Ricky Pearsall being placed on that injured list? What are your thoughts on everything? And is this something that you were expecting from Brayden Aiyuk's camp to request a trade?
Yeah, I mean, when you bring up, there are two parts of this. Brandon Aiyuk requesting a trade. I think to me, this is Aiyuk again. When you talk about leverage, Aiyuk trying to use whatever is kind of at his disposal. To me, this is a last-ditch effort from Brandon Aiyuk to try and force the Niners' hand into signing an extension before the season starts. Training camp is usually the inflection point, or, late July is the inflection point for a lot of the 49ers extensions in the past. Aiyuk, obviously, he wants to get his deal done. He hasn't gotten paid. He doesn't, a lot of people get that signing bonus money. None of that has come to him. He's currently scheduled to play on the fifth-year option. The Niners have kind of made it clear, we're not going to trade you. You're either going to, accept a deal or play on your fifth-year option. It seems that they've become comfortable with the idea of potentially using the fifth-year option. And so to me, this is Aiyuk saying, well, guess what? I'm going to take it one step further, publicly request a trade. Now, what does this ultimately mean? We'll get into that. I don't know if it really means much. But to me, I think honestly, and we'll get into the Aiyuk part, a little bit as well. I think the Niners have kind of handled this pretty well in terms of exerting their leverage, and it's a different situation. Last two, Deebo Samuel, you didn't have the fifth-year option. You didn't have that luxury, of having that one extra year. Nick Bosa, well, he's Nick Bosa. He was going to get paid the largest contract. The Niners they didn't get the best out of that one. Bosa waited so long, and Bosa also got his deal. The Niners here with Aiyuk, though, they've been pretty steadfast with their thinking, and it's also because it's the receiver position with an explosion. If Aiyuk wants his money right now, I think the Niners are in a pretty good position to get, their preferred deal on the table. It's still going to be expensive. But I thought this was kind of the last chip that Aiyuk is throwing in to try and kind of get that deal done before camp, or really sooner than later. Now, as for Ricky Pearsall, not ideal. Again, it's not serious, but I think that's it's just all interesting timing because the guy that is expected to potentially replace.
Oh, Rohan, we might have lost you.
Aiyuk,
Looks like we
Aiyuk
lost.
isn't on this team. If Aiyuk is holding out, or what? Maybe I think we're good.
All right,
I
you're
think
good
we're
now.
good. But
You're good now.
essentially, what I was saying with Ricky Pearsall, he might be, a little bit of a little bit more of a bargaining chip for Brandon Aiyuk. Hopefully, he's back out on the field soon. We'll see what ultimately happens during camp for Pearsall.
Yeah, I just thought it was very interesting. In this comment, it's kind of interesting as well. It says Aiyuk should fire his agent. Pretty embarrassing. His track record is sus too. What I thought was interesting is the agent and John Lynch are like best friends, like really close friends. So I thought that was very interesting in terms of how do you negotiate with the 49ers knowing that you have to represent your client, but also on the other side of the representation is a really good friend of yours. So how do you take it when the Niners do disrespect you in terms of negotiations, or do you convince your player to take less money? Um, it's just very interesting to see what an agent can and can't do. Um, I personally think Ryan Williams, I believe he's at Athletes First, which is usually a pretty good organization in
Yeah,
terms of
good
representing
agency.
players. So I thought that was interesting that he did stuck with Ryan Williams as his main agent. Typically, you have a lot of players have multiple agents. They'll have 2 or 3 agents on a contract or 2 agents on a contract. But I don't think he's sus. I mean, he's negotiated 24 contracts in the NFL. He's been with the NFLPA since 2013. Saying sus is pretty interesting because it's saying that his track record, like he doesn't have clientele, which is false. Now, Jake says looking forward to Campbell, Winters, and Graham battling it out at will linebacker. We'll get into that in a few. Business, not personal. That's what I would assume. But the way things have came across as if Brandon Aiyuk has kind of done a little bit of the negotiating himself, telling the 49ers, I want to meet in person. I want to speak to you in person, stuff like that. It's very interesting. Obviously, I don't think the Niners trade
I
Brandon
think it's
Aiyuk.
also tough with these negotiations to keep the two worlds apart if you're a player, business and personal.
Absolutely. And right before we get into camp battles, do you think Aiyuk's traded? Just a yes or no answer.
No, no,
No.
no.
Same. I don't think he's traded either. So let's get it straight into camp battles. Obviously, Brandon Aiyuk is a big topic. Williams was the one who botched the Josh Norman contract talks. Which contract talks are you talking about? Because didn't Josh? I'm sure if he was the same agent as that Josh Norman had when he got paid pretty well. Um, have you heard how serious the Pearsall injury is? I have not, Rohan. Have you? I just saw that Matt Miyoko reported that it is not serious. I think you're
Yeah.
muted.
Oh, there we go. I mean, we haven't heard too much about it. Just know some people have said it's not serious. I think, I mean, I'd expect he's in like a no contact jersey to start training camp. Hopefully, it's not that big of a deal. NFI is something that you can be taken off at any time. It's not like he's required to be on the list for the entirety of camp. So it might be more of a precaution.
Do you, do you remember when? And this is just because of the topic, obviously, of training camp and camp coming in. This is a good conversation to have right now. What are your thoughts on during OTAs when he was practicing with the non-contact, the blue jersey for non-contact? Do you think he was actually dealing with an injury, or were the Niners just trying to prevent him from getting touched because of the Brandon Aiyuk negotiations? Because obviously you don't want your potentially leverage in a way to be touched, and you don't want him to get hurt. Or was he battling something and he was like, you know what, I could play through it. It's not severe. I'll be fine by camp.
I think it was more the not related to Aiyuk. I think he was probably battling through some nagging injury. Maybe it's a nagging hamstring. Maybe it's a quad. Who knows? I'm just speculating. I think it's more of a nagging injury, erring on the side of precaution early on, knowing you don't want to exert something too soon. You know, with Pearsall obviously going through the draft process and all the work that comes with that, going straight into rookie minicamp. And so I think it was more on that side.
Okay, gotcha. And for my guy saying, Invader saying, um, okay, the franchise tag and then the Panthers rescinded their offer. I mean, Ryan Williams also negotiated a 5-year, $75 million deal that was guaranteed at signing was 36.5 for Josh Norman. So, I mean, even though he didn't get that offer, that franchise tag, I would think as a player that franchise tag in 2015 or the 2016 tag that they had on him, I would personally prefer a 5-year, $75 million contract. Because right after the Panthers, he ended up going over to the Washington Commanders
Commanders,
on a
right?
5-year, $75 million deal. And at the time, it was one of the biggest contracts for a corner. So it wasn't that, I mean, I guess you could say it was a mistake that he said, don't sign it. Maybe he knew that it was going to be rescinded and he was going to get a bigger offer from another team on the open market. Hit the open market, got cashed out, was one of the higher paid corners during that time. Now going into the offense, Rohan, obviously, oh dang, going into my chair just broke. It's like leaning back as far as it can. That's crazy. So going into the 49ers roster, right? Offensively, there probably isn't many camp battles or anything like that for any starters. However, there's probably a couple positions that you could argue there's maybe a backup spot or something like that on the line, or someone who possibly could be in favor of maybe training camp nod over another player. What are your offensive training camp battles that you're looking at and you're like, I want to watch XYZ player or so and so compete for a roster spot or the backup job to someone or something like that?
I think when you're talking about competing, we good now? Yeah, I think when you're talking about competing, to me, there are a couple of positions that pop out. One, the one that Jake kind of mentioned, linebacker. When you don't necessarily have a starter spot, where I'm interested is where do you have an infusion of young talent that this is the spot. This is kind of the time where you can see who's ahead of another, who's kind of developed more, or who develops more over the next 2 weeks. And so linebacker is a spot that I kind of think about with the number of guys you have. Green. What do you call it? You have the two guys you drafted last year with Winters and Jalen Graham. You have Tatum Bethune, who you drafted this year. Those are some to think about the linebackers.
No, we're offense. We're offense first. Offense first.
Oh, my bad. Overall offense first, running back. Isaac Guerendo. Can he crack early on? We've mentioned Isaac Guerendo on the show. You pointed out kind of some of the struggles he had during OTAs. How was he developed in the last few months? Is he kind of more acclimated now that he's maybe read the playbook a little more, understood a little more? What do you think?
Working with Frank Gore should help.
That is true. Kind of him in the building as well. What do you think?
No, not even in the building.
Isaac Guerendo role.
Not only in the building has he worked with Frank Gore. Frank Gore was training him for a little while. Frank Gore was training him, his son. I think Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, are you saying like?
Can someone in the comments tell me if Rohan keeps cutting in and out for you guys, or if it's my internet? Can someone in the chat tell me if Rohan keeps cutting in and out for you, because he keeps freezing on my end and I can't hear him, or is it me?
Huh. Okay. I'm not sure why that is. It's a little wavy here as well.
Yeah. See, Harold said it's yeah. They're saying you're cutting out. Rohan, try to get out and then come back in real quick to see if it changes anything.
I'll figure that out. You keep talking about the running backs.
So for me, when I'm looking at the running back room, Isaac Guerendo, as Rohan was mentioning, he is practicing with. I thought he was going to come back in. Isaac Guerendo is. Oh, geez, they said I thought he was Joe Biden. Oh my God, Rohan, that's hilarious. So as Rohan was mentioning, Isaac Guerendo, he has been struggling in OTAs, or he struggled in OTAs. Obviously, reading gaps or reading stuff. Obviously, there's a couple of reports that he landed on his face twice. There's a lot of things that were in play for Isaac Guerendo. Now, what I was trying to tell Rohan was he's actually been training with Frank Gore in the offseason. So after OTAs and everything like that, Frank Gore got a group of players, and he was actually training a group of players. So some of the guys, I believe, was Jonathan Taylor, Frank Gore Jr., Isaac Guerendo was one of them as well. And then I forgot who the last guy was. There's another guy there that was getting some reps with Frank Gore. So I think, can that help him? I'm not sure, but obviously Frank Gore can't teach you how to see a hole. He can't teach you what to essentially do. Frank Gore is a heck of a player. Can he coach it? It's a little bit different when you're coaching it Now, obviously, he was just putting him through drills, wasn't really putting him like actually coaching the X's and O's of a running back, which I'm sure he could do that anyways. Like Frank Gore is one of my all-time favorite 49ers. Now, when you look at Garendo, I think he has an uphill battle. I still think you have guys like Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell ahead of him. Now, what I would prefer to see, the battle I really want to see at the running back spot is who wins number 2. I personally think there's an interesting competition here because you essentially have the 49ers backup could be Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, or potentially Isaac Garendo. Now, Mason is a hell of a running back when he's running the ball. In pass protection, geez, that's where he gets himself on the bottom of the roster on the running back room. I personally think Kyle Shanahan is too much involved or in love with Elijah Mitchell for what he has done for the 49ers in the past. For me, that's a little bit of a concern. And Rohan, you're back. I was just
We are
talking about
good.
how the totem pole and the depth chart in the running back room, and how I think Mason is probably one of the better runners after CMC on the roster with the ball in his hand, but is terrible in pass protection. So I want to see has he gotten better there? Can he compete for running back 2, or is it going to be handed to Elijah Mitchell right away? Is that Elijah Mitchell spot? And then you obviously have Isaac Garendo, who before you went out, I was trying to explain to you that he didn't work with Frank Gore pre-draft. He's actually been working with him after OTAs and everything. Frank got a group of guys that he's worked with in the past or played with in the past. Guys like Jonathan Taylor, Frank Gore Jr., Isaac Garendo was also on the roster in that training group. And he was having all of them go through a lot of different drills and stuff like that. So has he gotten better working with Frank Gore Jr.? The last guy might have been Patrick Taylor Jr. working. I don't know if that's what Harold's trying to say, or is he going to have a shot? I don't think Patrick Taylor Jr. has a shot. What are your thoughts on the running back room, Rohan? Those are my pecking order. If I had to choose going into camp, my running back order, to be honest, I would probably go running back 1, Christian McCaffrey, running back 2, Jordan Mason. If he gets better in pass protection, if he shows he could pass protect, Isaac Garendo. I would try to trade Elijah Mitchell, and Cody Schrader would be my 4th running back on the roster. Those would be my 4 running backs, and if I could try to get Cody Schrader on the practice squad, I would, but I don't think he makes it to the practice squad after his preseason. He's going to get some carries in the preseason. He's going to impress teams, and I think would be my starting or my 4 running back guys. So what I'm excited about in the running back room is how does it shape up? Who wins that backup roles? Those backup roles are key if the 49ers have to play a couple of games or a game or two without a Christian McCaffrey. I think that to me is a pretty focal point of the 49ers roster because it can be very, very important. That's probably one of the most important backup roles on the roster because if Christian McCaffrey goes down, can you continue to run the ball at a respectable rate where you could go play action and use the play action with the Brock Purdy? Because if you don't have Christian McCaffrey on your roster or on the backfield, you kind of call plays differently as a defensive coordinator. So those are kind of what I'm looking at as one of the most important camp battles, at least on the offensive side of the ball. So what are your thoughts on the running back room, Rohan? Sorry, I went on a long tangent there.
No, I mean, you make a lot of good points. You talk about the running back room, and I think I agree with most of what you said. You obviously have McCaffrey, but training camp is specifically for the other guys. I'd expect CMC to take at least half of the days off, or every other day off, and then not really participate too much when it comes to the team drills and things like that, just to keep his body fresh. And so when you talk about CMC in that regard, I'm excited to see the rest. To me, Mitchell is the 2. And the reason is, at this stage, do you think the 49ers trade him? I think the 49ers are looking for trying to find who the best guys to compete in 24 are. I think Mitchell is your guy, and he's the guy who has the highest trust out of the coaching staff. And that's the reason he's going to end up being the 2 for me, just because he doesn't fumble. That's something Kyle Shanahan, takes into regard pretty highly. Jordan Mason had some issues with fumbling very early last year. Obviously, still played his way into a solid enough role. Got like 35 carries or so. The thing for Mason, like you said, is pass protection. If Mason is a better pass protector, if he at least shows that he can, do his part and make it so that when he's on the field, teams don't really fully commit to the run and make it a little more, two-dimensional, then he's got a shot at a bigger role because he averages 5 yards a carry when teams know that he's going to run the football at him. So imagine what more he could do if he could be a little more versatile, And so that's the thing for me. Guerrero here is at 4. He's more of a pick for the future. And so when you talk about a guy like him, think he's the Mitchell replacement of the future. Expect Cody Schrader to be a practice squad guy, or if he gets claimed elsewhere, goes elsewhere.
Ron, do you know where Frank Gore Jr. went? Did he go to Buffalo?
Oh, he might have. I am not exactly sure. Can check that. Not too sure.
Cool. Now, for me, this is a good question. Who backs up Juice or cross trains with Juice? This is actually pretty good because I think Rohan will probably answer this one. So I'm going to go straight to this position group. Rohan, what are your thoughts on the camp battle at tight end? Is there any camp battle spots or anyone that you think is an interesting player or intriguing enough to care about in the tight end room? Obviously, we know.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Obviously, we know tight end 1 is Kittle. Tight end 2 was probably Logan Thomas. So you're looking at 3, 4 if they decide to keep a 4th.
To me, I think this is wide open. You got the young guys, the 2 rookies from last year, Cam Latu, Brayden WIllis. I think they both compete. You see how, you see who kind of fits better. And I think the guy who we heard whispers about last year to back up or cross train with Juice was Willis. They saw him as more of a versatile guy, a guy who could play a fullback role or a flex tight end role, And I think Latu is the guy you watch the most in this group. Has he truly improved? Is he like he is last year? Is he on, is he on cut watch? Because the Niners, they are willing to, move on if it doesn't work out. And so those are the 2 guys I'm mainly watching in the room. Does either guy even have a chance to potentially push Logan Thomas? He's a veteran, doesn't need as many snaps in the, in the offseason. Kittle probably takes a couple of days off too for rest and recovery. This is a room where there's going to be a lot of opportunity in camp and a lot of young names to potentially fill the roles.
Now, this is a great comment or mention, not being sold on Thomas to make the roster, the 53-man out the gate. Now, Thomas only has about 300 dead cap, so the Niners decided to cut him. They have no ties to him, really. So, essentially, it's a very low-risk, high-reward kind of signing. Now, I definitely think the Brayden WIllis is the cross-training with Juice. He'll be that tight end, that fullback tight end guy that you can move around. Now, the interesting thing is in that tight end room, someone you didn't mention, or at least I didn't hear you mention them, and that I'm actually excited to watch or actually hear from is Mason Pline. Now, 6'7", 6'6", played basketball, so he knows how to box out and go up and get a rebound. Someone like a Logan Thomas, if you think about it. Logan Thomas, I believe, is in that same range of 6'5", 6'6", played quarterback. Obviously, Logan Thomas obviously did before he converted to tight end. So when I'm looking at Logan Pline, can he convert to an NFL-like tight end? Can he be a receiving threat in an offense? Now, the probability is low, obviously, because he's a former basketball player, converted football player, coming from a smaller school. I believe he went to, if I'm not mistaken, Fordham or Furman. So what can you get with him? But I think the main battle is between Brayden WIllis, Cameron Latu, and then do you want a blocking tight end? Do you want Eric Saubert to be your 3rd or 4th? Does that matter enough to Kyle Shanahan to make sure that player is competing with everyone on the roster, but then having the edge because he could block and play special teams? If that's the case, blocking it was supposed to be one of Brayden Willis's better attributes coming out of college. Wasn't that great in NFL, at least to start his career. Didn't get much opportunity, but everyone, Rohan, do you criticize Brayden WIllis so much for the fumble in the Super Bowl or the muffed punt in the Super Bowl? Obviously, he had bounced off of his leg, I believe, or he was in the vicinity.
You mean?
No, so it actually bounced off of Willis, I believe.
Oh, you're saying the bounce off of Willis.
Because he was in that area. A lot of people blame Brayden WIllis as like, oh, like I've seen comments on social media like the dumb rookie. What the hell was that rookie doing? Why was he in the area? He shouldn't be on the roster. Does that matter to you coming into this year when you're building the roster?
No, no, not at all. I think he was one of the if you're talking about reasons why the Niners lost Super Bowl, he'd probably be at like 60. He's way down there. And so no, not really.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a big deal.
We didn't see much of him last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the offensive side, is there any other camp battles on the offensive side of the ball? Obviously, we haven't talked about offensive line or receivers. And obviously, we talked a little bit about tight ends, which, I mean, some would argue that tight ends are considered receivers now, according to Kittle and the Receiver Show. Bullshit. I call bullshit. Shouldn't have been named receivers. I call bullshit. Should not have been named receivers, but that's a topic for another day, right? Rohan, any other camp battle on the offensive side, you're like, all right, I probably will be focused on this, or this is a player or two that I want to keep an eye on throughout training camp to see how they progress or how they're competing in camp?
Yeah, I got two. The big one, right guard. You got three guys there: Feliciano, Spencer Burford, and then the rookie Dominic Puny.
And we lost Rohan again.
Competition come about? Are we good?
Yeah,
I don't know
good
what
now.
Is going on today.
You're good now. So yeah. you talked about the last thing I heard was you said Puny.
I mean, what I was saying is those three guys, especially the two young guys, how would they quickly, develop into the rotation? And then wide receiver 6. We know the top 5 pretty much. Who's going to be the 6th guy? You got Ronnie Bell. You've got a couple of young guys. Who are the 6th? Who's going to be that guy? What do you think?
For me, I definitely agree. I think Dominic Puny is a pretty good camp battle. Obviously, if it's Feliciano at center competing with Jake Brendel, obviously, how's Jake Brendel's health? That's a major thing. Is what is Jake? If Jake Brendel's health is not like good, where he could be a starting player for the Niners may honestly decide to move off of him. They could obviously, I think they could get off of his contract fairly reasonably and save some money. Jake Brendel's contract this year has an out. So if they decide to save money or he's too injured where he might not be able to play that many games this year, they have the out where they could get rid of that contract. They would save, I believe, this year if he was released. They save $2 million or $4 million this year, and they would take a $600,000 dead cap this year and a $2 million dead cap next year. And they could use that money to roll over. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of positions to actually sign and stuff like that. So the 49ers do have the ability to do that. Feliciano might be the better center, but do they let Feliciano compete at right guard? I think Puny should be given the first opportunity to be that guy. Obviously, he might not be the first one in line, but I definitely think he should be given that opportunity. At receiver, I like the receiver room, man. It's obviously if Brayden Aiyuk's on the roster. If Brayden Aiyuk's not on the roster, I think this might be one of the weaker rooms in the 49ers roster after Deebo Samuel. If you look at the receiver room with no Brayden Aiyuk, Rohan, it's kind of changes your opinion without Brayden Aiyuk versus with Brayden Aiyuk. Obviously, if they trade him, they may be looking to get a veteran receiver in return. If they do, who is it? What value does he have to this roster? Because to be honest, I'm looking at the receiver room right now. As stands, Brayden Aiyuk on the roster. Aiyuk, Deebo, Jennings, Pearsall, Cowing. That's a pretty legit starting, legit 5 rotation. Now, the 6th guy, if the Niners decide to go 6, I think they keep a guy like Conley over Bell. I think he has more that veteran presence. He's able to step in at any time and play special teamer as well. So you could have that guy on your roster. I've always liked watching Tate Martin in training camp. Does a really good job. The receiver, everyone's going to have their eyes on, though, Rohan. Probably receiver 1 this year, Trent Taylor.
Mr. Owens.
Oh, no. Yeah. Trent Taylor, bud. Trent Taylor.
Oh.
Put some respect on his name, all right? Don't ever disrespect Trent Taylor, all right? No, you're right. You absolutely, I was messing around. I was going to say Tariq Owens, but I wanted to mess with you. I think Tariq Owens, everyone's going to be watching Tariq and truthfully looking at that position and saying, oh, cow, like, is he like his dad? people are going to try to compare him to his dad. And I think it's very wrong to do, but you're going to have people who compare him to his dad. Can he run routes? Can he do XYZ? I don't think he can. I think the Niners roll with 5 receivers this year, and I think it'll be Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Jauan Jennings, and Jacob Cowing. They'll obviously try to put one of those guys on the practice squad, and I think the lead candidate for that spot would be Chris Conley. What are your 5 or what are your 6 that you would keep?
Yeah, I think it's you got their top 5. I think they do go 6 just because of the depth they have with some of the guys ending up in the practice squad. I think Conley is going to be on the practice squad because of the veteran rule. I think that they've got a better shot of keeping him on the practice squad. I think it would be Tay Martin or Ronnie Bell with a better shot for the 6th spot, given that he made it last year. Ronnie Bell might be, the candidate, but I don't know if he's the best player to be that 6th spot. You did mention, though, that the receiving room looks a lot worse, without Brandon Aiyuk. I think you could say the same for a lot of the guys with all, because he's an all-pro
And we lost Rohan again.
player. But the thing is, going to be on the roster, and that's kind of the way that Brandon Aiyuk isn't leaving. He's going to be on the roster, and that's kind of the way that I view that room.
I mean, your Wi-Fi today, man. Is it windy in the Bay?
No, it's sunny, and the Wi-Fi been working before this. I don't know if it's the Wi-Fi or if it's StreamYard messing with me today.
You know what it is? It's the Niners not wanting us to talk about training camp battles. That's what it is. I'm sold. John Lynch doesn't want us talking about training camp battles, so he's like, hey, you know what? Don't let them stream, and he's messing with your internet. I firmly believe that, Rohan. That's what it is. Expectation on a rookie kicker. Obviously, I think this is something that I wish the Niners would have did. I wish they would have brought in a kicker to compete with Robbie Gould. Can they compete with Robbie Gould? Not Jake Moody. Sorry, I miss Robbie Gould. You guys see that? I miss Gould.
Jake Moody.
I wish they would have brought in a kicker to compete with Jake Moody. Because essentially you have him who struggled last year, more so in the playoffs, which at the time you should not have. My bad, Cubs. My bad, Justin. A Cubs fan getting mad because I'm wearing the White Sox hat again. So for me, I definitely think they should have brought someone in to compete. Like, how do you not have someone come in and compete with him after he struggled? Like, you're obviously giving him a job without serious. Like, if this would have been a other position, someone would have been in competing. But just because they took him in the damn 3rd round, bro, roster politics is in play where he's like, no, he makes too much money. He's going to be on the roster no matter what. So I think obviously hope he gets better. If not, pray every time he kicks, I think, or close your eyes. What are your thoughts, Rohan? Do you close your eyes when he kicks?
No, but you are. The thing is, do you want to spend 2 roster spots of 90 on a kicker? I think you can make an argument for it, but he's got to take a big leap forward. He was a 3rd round pick. You don't have a choice. You kind of just gotta roll with him, I guess, and hope he takes the big leap forward.
I think they could have gone with one less player at another position. Like, they have like 40 corners. They have like a couple of extra safeties that are probably not going to make the roster. You probably could have gone. Obviously, you don't want a lot of these players to get a lot of training camp wear. So it's one of those ones where I get it. I truly get not having that extra guy on the 90 man roster. Talked about receiver. Talked about O-line, defensive side of the ball. The actual real thuds where they get to actually not hit anybody and they get abused and abused the first couple of days of training camp because or first time throughout training, the entirety of training camp because they can't tackle, can't actually get after the quarterback, sack anyone. I feel bad for defense in training camp, Rohan. I truly do. They
can't do it. Yeah, especially when you have no pads to start.
Any camp battle? I know earlier we had a couple of people talking about the free safety room. I know Invaders 49ers saying really don't have a single high cover 3 safety for free safety on the roster right now. You don't really need a true single high cover 3 free safety anymore because you could disguise a lot of things. So you're not putting so much strain on that player and having to be that eraser. You're not having that Earl Thomas who has to go sideline to sideline Niners like to run a lot of cover 2, cover 4. The last couple of years, they probably do that a little bit more. Probably go a little bit more cover 2 man. That's what I would at least assume. Cover 2 man a little bit more. Um, Obviously, any split safety, it's kind of the go-to in the NFL now. So you don't really need that cover 3 free safety who could be that eraser on the back end. And even then, you do have the guys to do it. Jair Brown could do it. Hufanga showed he could do it his last couple of years when he was an All-Pro in times. I'm sure Mustafa could do it as well. So you're not really asking them to be in cover 3 60% of the time. So you don't need that guy anymore, at least for the 49ers defense. But roster camp battle for the defense side, Rohan, anyone in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I look at corner. You got so many young options at corner. You've got a starting spot potentially available. Ronaldo Green is in the mix. You got Daryl Luter potentially on the outside. Isaac Yiadom on the outside. Curious to see, is it going to be the veterans that emerge, or is it going to be the younger guys that emerge? That's the one that I'm most intrigued about, especially because I expect Travarius Ward to probably take a couple of days off as well. You get some options where younger guys will get, 1 reps against the top guys. So that's where I'm most intrigued about. And also you see, the starters mix in with the twos. So there's going to be ample competition and ample opportunity against good level players.
And Ron, do you want to answer this one? Because he continues to, so like 49ers have typically leaned or on a single high cover 3 zone heavy scheme, relying on 4-man rush to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I think the scheme kind of part is kind of adapt or evolved, as the years have gone on. Obviously, you had a different coordinator last year with Steve Wilkes, a guy who was a little more blitz heavy. And you're right in the sense that cover 3 look or that cover 1 look where you have that single high safety, you maybe don't have as much versatility there anymore because Gibson was, that guy. He wasn't necessarily an eraser, but the Niners also really have made their safeties versatile. You remember when Jimmy Ward was playing, he would range from the box to the back end to the slot. He played over 200 snaps in the slot per year, and so I think that role has become a lot more versatile. And the biggest thing that can help you erase that concern is having better man corners. And the Niners have kind of made an effort to fulfill that goal with Charvarius Ward, with some of their free agent signees and draftees, and also, Deommodore Lenoir evolving. I think that's kind of something that they're going to try and, think about a little more, play a little bit more press man coverage, trust their corners a bit more, and allow their safeties to be free ranging and roam around the field and kind of play the role that they're best accustomed to when you talk about Hufanga and Jair Brown.
Yeah, when I think that, like you said, like the defense has kind of evolved, even though Steve Wilkes, good point, Steve Wilkes changed a little bit. Steve Wilkes added stuff that I think the new defensive coordinator is gonna run with. I think he's gonna see this, and I think Sorensen as a former defensive back understands that you can't just be in cover 3 all day and get picked apart. Cover 3, especially if you're in cover 3, like you could truly pick cover 3 apart a lot more. And I think NFL teams are going to more of a split safety look. That's kind of more so the better coverage in the NFL right now. So you don't give up the big plays. You don't do certain things. And I saw a little bit more last year with the way the NFL was approaching, especially in the playoffs. You want to make teams throw in tighter windows, and cover 2 and cover 4 is something that does that and allows you to make tighter window throws for teams, which leads to more turnovers for the defense. I know you mentioned cornerback situation. Who's the first 3 that lines up in the base situation when they're going over their shell defense?
I think Green is going to end up being, one of the first 3. Oh, actually, day 1, I don't know. Maybe it's Yiadom. Maybe Yiadom
I
on
think
day 1.
Yiadom. I think
Yiadom
Yiadom
on day 1.
in Lenoir.
Yeah, Yiadom probably, Lenoir on the inside. That's how I'd expect it to start.
It's interesting because the Niners, they picked up a couple of corners. They obviously picked up Yiadom. They also picked up Rakyasin. So it's curious. I'm like interested to see how it plays out in terms of the cornerback room. Obviously, you also have Daryl Luter, who had a really good OTAs. Amy Thomas is on the back end. Like, why? Just please cut me now so I could find a new team during training camp. Like, he's truly gone. Like, and it sucks to say when you talk about players having to be in that situation as a human aspect, right? So for me, I think the first couple of corners that they line up is obviously Charvarius Ward, Demo possibly in the inside, and I could see them doing Yadam on the outside just to see what they have. I think the plan is to start Renardo Green on the inside and Demo outside, which is very interesting. So the corners battle is more so for that nickel spot, and essentially it's a weird battle, right? The way I see it is, can Yadam prove to be a really good corner on the outside where it forces the 49ers to play him out, to start him outside. And what that would do is cause um,
Lenore.
Demo to Lenore to move inside. And it essentially takes away from Renardo Green. So Yadam is technically competing with Green, but at a different spot. I don't think Green plays on the outside for the 49ers. I would prefer him to stay outside. I think he can play outside, and so can Lenore. But I think the Niners move him inside. What are your thoughts?
I want to ask you this real quick as well. I think that that's a good point. I would also prefer he stays outside. I think that they might like him on the inside. I think Lenore would be the better fit inside, but he's obviously the higher value outside. To me, Yadam has never played, as a full-time defender. I don't know. I don't know, how his body's going to sustain 17 weeks of playing, high end snaps. Do you think that they could potentially have a rotation, but the rotation looked like it was last year, where when you substitute, you have Lenore moving in and out, on a more rapid pace than maybe you usually expect, just because, uh, you have an inside and outside guy.
I don't think so. So I've always taken something that my guy Eric Crocker has said in the past and talked about how like it's hard for corners to sub in and sub out because like you want to feel for the game, you want to get these reps. One rep, like you might get beat, but the ball doesn't come to you, and then like you're kind of like figuring. It's like a chess match. You're kind of figuring out what's happening throughout the game, and the more you sub someone in and sub someone out, the less feel that player has during the game. So it's kind of what I'm looking at is if you do that, you better expect for one of them or both of them to give up big plays every once in a while because they're not having that feel for the game or they're doing something differently to the defense. So that's where kind of I look at it. I think I like when you just have your set guys and you go at them. Obviously, if a guy needs a rotation, a rest every once in a while, that's cool, but not as frequently as like you would think. You know what I mean? Like or as you mentioned, like everyone, like every other series or every two series are in and out. Like if you're gonna do it, give them a few series. Like don't do one series, one series, one series, one series. Give them 3 series. Give them the next guy 2 series.
Yeah.
Like give them some continuity of playing so they can actually get a feel for the game and understanding of what their receivers and their offense is actually trying to do. And I think that's kind of a big thing for a corner because one bad play for a corner and he's in for 5 plays. Yeah, you can see how the fan base or NFL people would talk about one player who gave up a touchdown and he only played 5 reps, right? But he only those other 4 reps were phenomenal, but no one's gonna talk about him because he didn't have a feel for the game. And in that one play he came in and got bombed on, that's what everyone's gonna remember.
Yeah, good point. Do you have any other ones on your mind? I know we talked about corner. Is there anything else? We talked briefly, I guess, about linebacker, but we can go there. What else do you think about training camp battles on the defensive side?
Yeah, and linebacker. Dee Winters. If you're watching this, man, go win a job. It, bro, go do it. Like you were drafted high enough to go and be possibly the replacement for um Dre Greenlaw. Go get your job. Don't let old Devondre Campbell take your job. The Niners drafted you in the 6th round from TCU. Go be great, man. That's what I want to see. Go win. Jalen Graham, go take a job. Those two young. I don't like the Niners brought in Campbell. I don't think he's been good with the Packers. He could argue scheme wasn't a good fit or X Y. Man, nah. Let the young guys play. Go win a job. Go compete. I'm excited about the linebacking group because you do have probably 6 to 8 weeks that you don't have Dre Greenlaw. Um, so that's to me what I'm looking for. What can they do in that linebacking room? How can they push themselves? How can you stand out when you can't hit? How is your coverage? How are you filling gaps? Filling like that's to me calling plays, recognizing stuff. So for me, that's what I'm looking forward to. I hope it's Winters who replaces Dre Greenlaw at that will linebacker spot. Obviously, in that Sam linebacker, the Sam role in base situations, I think Jalen Graham could do it. Now, the 49ers still have Oren Burke on the I believe.
No,
No,
not
they do
Burke.
not.
Demetrius Fouls.
There you go. DFF. They still have DFF on the roster. I don't think he should be competing with the other two. I think it should be Fred, Winters, Campbell, and Jalen Graham all competing. I know they just drafted Tatum Bethune. I wasn't a fan of his. His film is not that great.
Yeah. I mean, 7th round pick in a pretty, weak draft.
No, but I'm saying that because I know a lot of people said that he might start. Oh, if he starts. Ooh, boy. Ooh.
Would have been a big jump if that's the case.
You would have to have a big jump, and you'd have to out of a lot of muscle during the time from his last college game to now because he's a smaller linebacker. When we talk about small linebackers, 5'11", 229 is pretty damn small, and it's not like his frame is not that big. Like he might have added weight for the combine when he weighed in.
Justin is my favorite commenter. That stupid hat is climbing your thoughts. Burks is gone. Justin's the guy. I don't care if he supports Chicago. Justin's the guy.
Hey, guess what? Justin, guess what? Guess what? When I went to the Cubs game, they lost. The Cubs suck. All right. The Cubs suck. You guys are going to have another 100 years without winning a World Series just because you said that comment. And we're going to call it the Justin curse. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome for the Cubs curse. But no, like looking at the linebacking group, I think I saw someone in the chat say Malik Mustafa at the will linebacking spot would be insane. A 200-pound linebacker would be insane. Absolutely insane. I would like it would blow my mind if he was like I would probably think like I would probably stop doing most stuff, film watching and everything if he became a will linebacker because a 5'10", 200 linebacker, 200-pound linebacker, like that's insane. But who knows, man? Oh, we got 2 Cubs fans in the house.
Yeah, I mean,
oh shit! Sorry, Eric. Eric, you're not cursed.
You were a Cubs fan too.
That you're not cursed. All right, you're not cursed. Only Justin. Justin won't see the World Series. Like, if you guys are in the World Series, his TV connection will not work the entire time. That's what we'll go there. All right. So linebacker. We talk linebacker. D-line. Do you think there's any competition at D-line or anyone who's on the verge of not making the roster that has a lot to lose or a lot to gain from training camp this year?
I think if you look at the group, Kalia Davis stands out. You can't?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I think if you look at the group, Kalia Davis, he's the guy who stands out. Kalia Davis is the guy who I think is, on the verge of potentially being cut. Fairly deep, DT room. And the Niners went 2 for 1. They added 2 defensive tackles, losing 1. He's the guy who I think if you're going to think about a potential move, Kalia Davis is the guy who I think, he's got a lot to prove this offseason.
Can we finally get rid of Kevin Givens? Like, what does he like? Not trying to be a dick or anything, but what does he do for the Niners defensive line? Like a serious question. What does he do for the D-line? What stuff? Stand there, get pushed around?
Athletic pass rusher. We'll call it that.
When have you seen him pass rushing situation, win a clean rep, and do something great pass rushing?
Training camp?
Can we finally
That's
agree? Can we all agree?
I don't know.
Can we all agree he does not deserve a roster spot? like, and I'm not trying to be rude or
They
anything,
got a
but
lot of players.
because like looking at everything, like looking at the defensive tackles and everything like that, obviously Malik Collins, Hargrave, Jordan Elliott. I think Gross Matos may be a guy you kick inside on pass rushing situations when you need, and he gives more upside than Kevin Givens at that spot. Now, if you get rid of Kevin Givens, it allows you to keep a guy who like Shaquille Brown, who's an athletic freak, put up great numbers and everything like that from University of Troy, defensive tackle, 6'3", 295. Now he has more weight to be able to anchor and bigger guy. Kevin Givens in run defense, oh my geez, like it's terrible. It's not good. I've seen him get moved 5-10 yards way too often where unfortunately he should be the odd man out. And I would take Kalia Davis over Kevin Givens because of the run stopping ability. And Kalia Davis might have a little more upside as a pass rusher, but I think Shaquille Brown and Evan Anderson, as Avivo's Invader mentioned, they're like those two guys should have a chance to compete for a roster spot or a practice squad opportunity. And for me, I know he's not going on. I agree, he's not going anywhere because of the contract situation.
Actually, I think his contract was fully guaranteed this year because he did get $2 million. I think it was fully guaranteed. His cap hit's only $1.19 million, but I think his
it's $2 million total.
Million for money. So for
it's $2 fully guaranteed. Wait, is Spot Rack?
Yeah,
oh no,
he's got his spot.
Yes,
he's got his spot.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, it sucks because I don't think he should be on the roster, but since they paid him the $2 million, he's going to be. And it's like, dude, he doesn't provide much for the 49ers. And when we're being honest, I think that's to me one of the bigger question marks, and everything like that. I'm just curious on how everything's going to work out defensive tackle wise. I would prefer someone who actually could stop the run, who could actually get after the quarterback. That's just me. So those are what I'm looking at. Let's see, check out some of the comments that you. $2 million.
One last defensive line type question. Let me ask you one defensive line question, and I want to say, do you think this is the year where they maybe take less than their normal amount of defensive linemen? You know, you see them usually take 10, 11. Is this the year maybe they take 9 or 10?
I think so. And when I look at the 49ers defensive line room, right? You obviously have Nick, you got Malik Collins, Hargrave, Leonard. That's already 4. You obviously are keeping either Gross Matos, you're keeping that's 5, you're keeping Jordan Elliott, that's 6. It all comes down to, does Drake Jackson step up? Like, does Kevin Givens is obviously could probably make it. That's another 7 that I mentioned him at 7. So now you have 2 to 3 spots where Drake Jackson, Robert Bill, Kalia Davis, Ty McGill, Austin Bryant, all compete. And you could include Evan Anderson and Shaquille Brown in that spot for the extra last 2 spots. But I think they should. But then where would you, if they do, where would you put that extra player that you did not keep? Where would you want to keep that for? In the secondary, in the cornerback room, safety? You gotta have to have somewhere to keep it, right? And I think if they did, it would because they have such a deep secondary cornerback group that they would take one less defensive lineman and keep us a corner that they be like, hey, you know what? Emergency situation, he could play for us. So definitely one of those ones where I think so. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah. I think that there's options. It obviously depends, and there's a lot of roster politics that goes on with the initial group, but could be a possibility. Could be.
This was the main reason why I was going to say no. I think the lack of rotation last year. Remember last year, was it with me, you, and who was it? Was it Sunil? Was it when they had signed Hargrave? We talked about it. I was like, dude,
we had the debate. Yeah.
And I was telling like, hey, like I believe you agreed with me. And I was like, dude, the defensive line room is going to be bad. We're not going to have a great pass rush. The lack of depth is going to hurt us. Ended up coming back. Like, that was a huge reason the defense was always like hurting last year and looking like that. So definitely the lack of the rotation did hurt them last year. I talked about it on the show prior to the season and training camp and everything like that. I'd love to see Kalia Davis develop into something. Same. It just sucks he's always been injured. I have a question. Is Leonard Floyd an upgrade from Chase Young? On the count of three, Rohan, you get the answer. I'll answer. It's a one-word answer. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
Yes.
He's so his Wi-Fi. I should have waited like 10 seconds to answer because his Wi-Fi is off. My bad. A healthy rotation.
No, I was just waiting for you to answer so I could answer. Just a little. No, I'm kidding. The answer was yes.
So the D-line might even be better, especially considering Armstead injury problems. I wouldn't say it'll be better because Armstead provided a lot of things as one player.
Specifically for the run defense, right? And that was a problem when he was out.
Huge. And like when you look at it, it's like, hey, Armstead who steps up? Obviously, Jordan Elliott is a good run defender. When you look at the roster, some guys who I think lack run defense. Javon Hargrave, Kevin Givens. I talked to a couple of Carolina Panthers fans. They said Gross Matos could stop the run if he's your big end on the outside to stop the run. So kind of in that big end role that Armstead was for the Niners. So that's a good plus. But they said if you put him inside, he's not that great of a run defender. He's better at getting after the quarterback from inside. Malik Collins, better pass rusher than a run defender, but he's not terrible at stopping the run. I mean, you could have worse. Now, obviously, some of the guys on the roster are a little bit worse. So three of your top 4 defensive tackles are not great run defenders. So you have more depth, but the run defense may not be as good as it was because of that. Obviously, Hargrave, if he steps up and he is in great shape, he could be a better run defender. He's just never been a great run defender in his career. Always been an average to below average run defender. So it all just depends on how that unit rotates and can they get it going. Then Justin says, I agree. I've heard the discussion and my thoughts are that by proxy it has to improve. Injuries are the variable. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't, I mean, the depth is what's better. No, I'm not saying it was good. I meant like it could be worse. Like last year wasn't good. 2022 was solid. And I had predicted it was going to get worse in 2023, and I think it might get a little bit worse this year too. And I don't really see the avenue for the run defense on getting much better with the defensive tackles they have on their roster.
2, they had the number 1 run defense when you were talking about the last few weeks of the year. Remember, after Armstead came back from that injury, that's when they really amped efforts up. When they went on that second half run, that's when they had the number 1 run defense. Obviously slipped a bit last year. This year, we'll see.
Rohan, is there any one player? Obviously, there's a couple questions will be coming in and stuff like that. So we'll get to those as well. Is there any one player that you think will make the roster and it'll be a surprise roster, like a surprise player that makes the roster?
That's a good question. I think Jimmy Garoppolo. I watched receiver. I think that, he could come back and he could be the backup. I know it might be a little dysfunctional. Jimmy is the guy to go.
Imagine if Jimmy Garoppolo got cut by the Rams and the Niners signed him, bro. I would die. Obviously, he won't because of the contract situation and everything.
Then we got to film another show, receiver or tight end. See, we got to see their actual thoughts with Garoppolo on camera with everything available. That's what I want to see,
bro. The thing that's obviously, well, I'll let you get to the player the surprise player that's going to make the roster. But we're talking about receiver. We keep talking about receiver, right? We talked about it a couple of times, and Jimmy Garoppolo and stuff like that. Looking at Jimmy Garoppolo with how bad he was with the Raiders and how criticized, or I'm not going to say criticized, how Devontae Adams just bashed him to his face, literally. There was a point where I paused the receivers when he was like, "This is effing." When Devontae Adams was like, "This is effing pathetic." Shit, man. When he said that, you could watch Jimmy Garoppolo walking right in front of him. Like it shows his like lower leg, and you could tell it was Jimmy because it shows his quarterback's play wrist sheet thing, and he had the same cleats. I went back to confirm that it was him, and it's like, damn, like you're getting talked to your face like this. Wait, what happened to my comment? LOL. I don't know. You actually commented, and you have not commented. Rohan, has he commented? Well,
We did
shout out
not
to
see your
Jesse
comment.
for actually watching. This is probably
No,
the
this
first
is
time Jesse's ever watched our show, by the way. This is probably
no,
the
it's
first time.
okay. He takes a nap during the afternoon, so he probably just woke up. No,
Probably, man. Like I don't know. But coming back to the receiver show, was Jimmy Garoppolo this bad when he was with us? I remember I thought Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't good. I didn't think he was good at all. I thought after the 2019 season, a lot of fans were like, "Oh my god, his stats is so great. Oh my god, we have the next Jimmy Jesus." They were calling him this. Like they were like after the 2017 season, after the 5-game stretch, people were calling him Jimmy Jesus. 2019 took the Niners to the Super Bowl. People thought he was the real deal. Was he that bad with the 49ers? Or was he good with the 49ers, or was it Kyle Shanahan covering things up?
that's a good question. I don't know. I think it's like I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of things. I think he wasn't as bad, but I also think he definitely was covered up. And I think that's something we know.
Oh, that's crazy. I guess Jesse said that his comment was sitting there. He said, "I can't wait to see Rohan's stupid face at training camp." It sat there for a few minutes and just went away. Hey, that's how you know you're never on our show, because our people who constantly watch us, their comments don't go away. All right, so it sounds like a Jesse problem to me.
No, it was just because it was a stupid comment. That's probably why.
Someone said Eric's talking to Rogers, mentioning if you're a Rams fan and you see Jimmy on the field this season, it means your season's over. Not necessarily, because there's times where Stafford goes out a game or two, and he'll be back. So it all just depends. I hope Jimmy's on the field for the Niners game. That is just very disrespectful, because you don't want to see that. Like, no, that means Stafford to be hurt. This sucks, but it's kind of funny. Shanahan made Jimmy G. You know how I know?
No.
No explosive. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. You could say that. It's true. Well, for me, when I watched that show, or obviously we didn't even go back to your surprise roster make. Who's going to make the roster? Surprisingly, and this is way before training camp.
Oh,
Obviously,
yeah.
we'll have this topic again during training camp, towards the end of training camp, right before they make the 53-man roster. After we get to see who got to participate and look good. But as of now, way too damn early to make the 49ers roster is.
Funny enough, I talked about him briefly last week. Ben Barch is my surprise. I don't know how many surprises there's going to be. So that's why I'm going with Ben Barch.
That's actually a pretty solid one, because he could possibly be, depending on how the Niners view the right guard situation, if they think it's John Feliciano's job and Dominic Puny isn't ready yet and Brendel isn't ready, you could potentially see Ben Barch starting at center. So like that's actually a solid one. Which Forrester does love Ben Barch, actually, which is very interesting. My surprise roster make.
Yeah.
Way too damn early, and it's probably not going to happen. I'm going to go with Evan Anderson. I think Evan Anderson makes this roster. Yeah, I think he ends up making the roster at defensive tackle. If we go back to when the Niners have had a good run defense, one common denominator is a big dude in that interior, at that 3 tech. Obviously, when you're in the wide 9, you don't really have anyone who we've run in the wide 9. We've run in the wide 9. You need big ass bodies inside, right? It's harder to move. There's more space in the wide against the wide 9. For example, DJ Jones, big ass body, right? Hard to move. It allows you to actually stop the run. It's why Armstead's such a good run defender when he's at defensive tackle in the wide 9. Same thing when he's outside. It's a big ass body that's hard to move. I think Evan Anderson is a guy who was picked by I cannot think of the defensive line coach, the dude who's going to be yelling at everyone at camp first day like he's a maniac. His first day and he's yelling. Yeah, Kosaric. He's going to be yelling at people like first day of he's such a maniac, bro. I love it. I think he handpicked him. Like, hey, you know what? They visited with him a lot. Kosaric handpicked him. Like, we need this guy on our defensive line. I would not be shocked if he made the roster, but it's way too early to see what he looks like against NFL talent. So we'll definitely take a look at that. Jonas goes on and says, am I the only one who thinks if Aiyuk is on the team, Shanahan would make it a point to feature is still on the team. Shanahan will make it a point to feature Pearsall in the early weeks just to prove a point. I'm trying to. So if Aiyuk's still on the team, no.
Like he's saying essentially to spite Aiyuk, play Pearsall, no.
No, yeah. Especially because if you already.
Point is to win. Aiyuk gives you the best chance.
And you're probably extending Aiyuk at that point. Jesse says, I mean, why doesn't anybody put that together for Brock? We all agree Brock is better than Jimmy G, but if Jimmy G is a backup QB who looked top 12, isn't it fair to assume that Brock is being elevated, especially with Christian McCaffrey? Rohan. Whoa. Jesse's trying to take us down a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole, and I'm all for it, Ron.
Answer this first.
What happened?
I said I'll let you take the fire for it, and you.
Oh yeah, I'll take the fire. You know me. I'm always down to do some crazy shit and just say some crazy shit on the show. I agree, right? And this is why. What's crazy is I have Brock Purdy as a top 12 quarterback, 12-13 range is where I had him ranked, right? Which is not bad. People call it I'm a Brock hater because I talk about a lot of areas I think he should prove on, but I've also firmly have said I cannot say Brock is an elite quarterback or the top 5 quarterback yet or top 10 because I haven't seen him for multiple years in a row. And I said, and this is my response is I fell in love with Jimmy Garoppolo real early, and it was more so because of my fandom rather than watching the actual games and the X's and O's. After those 5 games in a row, right, we had a really bad rough stretch of having terrible head coaches after Jim Harbaugh. So for me, winning 5 games in a row, oh damn, he might be it. Obviously, 2018 he gets injured. 2019 he played. We go to the Super Bowl. I'm like, oh damn, we have a quarterback, right? But as we're watching, I'm still like, there's still stuff he struggles with, but man, we're winning. And then I could like, you know what? We have our franchise quarterback, and I said it live on a show in 2019 after 2019 season. I'm like, you know what? Damn it, we have our damn franchise quarterback. So that's why I've kind of like put the pause on naming Brock the franchise guy because of what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo and what can happen when you start losing players like Christian McCaffrey, like a Brandon Aiyuk, George Kittle. A franchise quarterback, a top 5 quarterback, is a guy who could carry an offense no matter who is on his roster. I don't know if Brock Purdy could do that. What I've seen is he can read the damn field. Probably when it comes to reading the field, A1, good quarterback. Arm strength, lacks. Now, when you need arm strength is when teams start going cover 2 and cover 4 against you in the playoffs, and they're actually blitzing you in these cover 2 press man situations where they're actually blitzing you, forcing you to make tight window throws over linebackers. Can he do that? Struggled at it in the playoffs, and that's where it gets important. Where your arm strength actually is important is in the playoffs when you got to make these tight window throws and they're suffocating you, blitzing you, taking away the run, and he struggled to do that. So for me, I 100% agree with Jesse's comment that we have to look at it in the sense of can Brock be going on that rabbit hole in terms of he's right now a top 10, top 12 quarterback, but then as soon as he plays without these guys or without Kyle Shanahan, he's a quarterback too. So I'll let you take that one because I know you were a little hesitant to answer that.
No, I think it's a good point, and my kind of argument for it is pretty short and simple. I think that there is a world where these guys are top 10 guys, and it's also fair to say that they're elevated. I mean, you cannot say that Brock Purdy is not going to be elevated when you have Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Kyle Shanahan all at his disposal. Yes, he's definitely elevated by an extremely superior receiving core. But I think you can also make the argument that he is among the top group of quarterbacks. And so that's kind of the part where a lot of people go dynamic of one side or the other. They don't really find the middle ground. I think that that's what he's kind of pointing to. He can definitely be on that borderline top 10 kind of category. I don't know if he's purely top 10 yet for me. He's right there, if not at 10. You have to kind of take it all together with your argument.
Yeah, like you have to take everything into consideration. Like it's obviously, even if I know there was a comment earlier and I can't find it, but they said even if Trey Lance did this, I would still if Trey Lance did this in his first 2 years, I would still be saying, you know what? Obviously, it's one full year of Brock Purdy. If Trey Lance did this his second year, that year he started or he was supposed to start, and he had this kind of season, I would say the same thing. Hold off. Same thing with Jordan Love. Hold off. We've only seen 1 year. The only player that I'm saying is elite after one full season, or after like having what I think is in that top 10 group is CJ Stroud. And the reason why I'm saying CJ Stroud is because I saw it we saw it at Ohio State. Right away he came in, didn't have receivers. He made his receivers. No one knew who Nico Collins was before. And I shouldn't say no one knew, but Nico Collins wasn't an elite receiver until CJ Stroud. Obviously, looking at the offensive line, in and out, a lot of players injured, in and out. Obviously, a left tackle who's a first team All Pro, second team All Pro level player in Tunsil. So for me, I do think what CJ Stroud did was pretty special. Now, don't get me wrong, Brock is a hell of a quarterback, but we're talking about a quarterback who people put in the top 5 range. And I've seen people talk about him like he's Patrick Mahomes, saying he is the next best quarterback after Mahomes. And at that point, that's where I'm like, no, let's draw the line and actually take a look at everything and be 100% honest with ourselves. The Niners have a really damn good quarterback. But when you have to pay him, how does it look when he no longer has a Christian McCaffrey, a Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Trent Williams when he retires? How does he look when he doesn't have everything perfect around him? And I think that is very important to have that conversation and not necessarily just say, you know what? It doesn't matter what he is without him. Let's pay him $65 million. And then as soon as you pay him, you're in a shitty situation like Russell Wilson, right? They lose their defense, lose their offense, and then he is a terrible quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks for a few years, and then he gets shipped off and everything like that. You can have that situation, and you don't want it.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think that again, this is all subjective. There are a lot of factors. I do think body of work is important here, and that's kind of the main takeaway.
Taking a look at. Wait, I have Brock higher than you, and I'm a hater. So that's what I'm saying. Like people, like Giannis is obviously having a conversation with Jesse. Obviously he's calling Jesse a hater, a Brock hater, calling him a Lance Homer. Very interesting when he has Brock Purdy higher than you, ranked higher than you, and you're calling him the hater. Like, so shouldn't you be the hater because you have him such lower? Wow, it's very interesting. When did Stroud play in Shanahan's system? Last year. Last year. It's a little different
Slowick
system, but
OC there. Yeah, he took Shanahan's system.
Yeah, a little bit different, but definitely very similar in terms of what they're trying to do over there. Obviously, I think Bobby Slowick and some kind of weird, Rohan. A lot of people who leave Kyle Shanahan's offense and they take it with them, they put a spin on it, and they're more aggressive with Kyle Shanahan's offense. I wonder if it's because they get a good quarterback early, or they have a quarterback they trust right away, or they at least put confidence in him. For example, we take a look at a lot of Kyle Shanahan's quarterback or coaches who have gone with that offensive system, and they're a lot more aggressive, or they change it up to a more 11 personnel. What are your thoughts? Do you think that's something with Kyle Shanahan's system itself, or Shanahan himself?
I think the Niners, the way that their system works with Kyle Shanahan, you don't need to complicate it even more because it's works so fluidly as is with because you have all the moving parts. I think when you go elsewhere, you might have to adjust a bit because different receiving cores and different quarterback styles. Sometimes, for example, in Miami, Tyreek Hill, you got to utilize his speed a little differently. That's where all the different motion sweeps with receivers kind of came in, and you see their receivers be used a little differently. Similar concept, just used a little differently. Obviously, the run game there works, at a high rate. And then last year with CJ Stroud, they change up a little bit of the concepts to fit their kind of, their core of weapons. And that's where I think there are some tinkering and some changes to be made. Obviously, a little bit more autonomy as well for the guys who are calling plays compared to when they're assistants under Kyle Shanahan. I think it's smaller factors like that kind of contribute to some of those changes.
And I like when they add that element. I hope Kyle continues to add that element of the 11 personnel and being a little more aggressive. If you truly believe and Brock is your guy, throw the ball more. Get more aggressive. Now, they ranked 17th. This is a pretty cool stat. They ranked 17th in passing attempts from quarter 1 to quarter 3. 17th. If you include all 4 quarters for every game they play, they ranked 32nd overall. Obviously, probably because they were winning a lot of the games where fourth quarter they're running the ball, killing the clock out. But still, within the first 3 quarters, only throwing the ball 17th in the NFL in a pass-happy league when you have a quarterback who could throw the ball. It's interesting. Is it a Kyle thing? Is it a trust thing? Does he not trust Brock to throw the ball that many times? Does he feel like his offense is most efficient when you're only throwing in that range of 15th to 17th in the NFL? Like, so you're looking at less throws, so you're kind of keeping the defense honest. Very curious numbers. So his full year, we guys are still talking about Trey Lance and all that. Interesting. A lot of people talking about Trey Lance recently.
That's okay.
Bro, he's not here no more. It is what it is. They probably change up personnel because they don't have a fullback who can do things. This is what I think they should do, 808 Niner. And I love that you bring up that they don't have a fullback. The 11 personnel is the same exact shit Kyle was running.
But Miami has Alec Ingold, and then I was saying Miami has Alec Ingold. They also, and then Houston also has Andrew Beck. So they have a fullback, but you are right in that they'll change up a little bit of what they do.
And I think, like you mentioned, so they do have fullbacks, and they're aggressive play callers. They're pushing the ball down the field. They're having their quarterback push the ball down the field, which is pretty cool to see, especially because it's working for them. Like, their offenses are very good offenses. Imagine if Kyle actually trusts Brock and let him sling the ball a lot more with how efficient Brock is. If those numbers are real, they're going to stay up there. And guess what? That offense is going to be a damn juggernaut to stop. Because now, if you're throwing the ball, you don't know what's going to happen on first and second downs. Like, obviously, you know what's really coming on first down. Niners usually typically run the ball or they go play action. Now you truly don't know what's going to happen because you can have Brock just in shotgun, take the snap and go with a pass. Something that the Niners don't really do, and other teams that have the Niners offense or Shanahan system typically do, which is pretty cool to see. Before they continue to keep talking about Trey Lance and versus Brock Purdy and everything like that, Rohan, thanks for joining me on today's show, man. Appreciate you, every single one of you guys. Appreciate every single one of you guys, including the ones mentioning Trey Lance, Brock Purdy situation. Who cares, man? It's over. We have our quarterback. Like, we really shouldn't be worrying about what happens. Like, hey, I was wrong on Trey Lance. Cool. That's all that matters. Like, I was wrong. A lot of people were wrong. Thanks for tuning in, Innovator. What it is, we have our quarterback. The funny part is nobody but Jesse. And the funny part is nobody but Jesse that I know on 49ers Twitter or 49ers content creator talked about Brock Purdy except for Jesse. Jesse had talked about him in 2022 and said he would draft him in the 3rd round. So obviously Jesse knows what he's looking at when it comes to quarterbacks. Not even the Niners thought Brock Purdy was that good of a quarterback, so they took him with the last pick because they didn't want him to sign with another team as an undrafted free agent. They didn't want to have to compete on the market for him. Nobody knew he was going to be this good. Oh well, let's move. 49ers are ready to rock. Training camp in a week. It's time to go get our next Super Bowl. This is the time. You have everything. You have the quarterback, head coach, defense, offense, a running game. You have the receivers to do it, tight ends to do it. You have everything you can ask for to win a damn Super Bowl. Can Kyle Shanahan win the Super Bowl? Can he get his team right in training camp? To me, that's the most important thing that we should be talking about right now. Rohan, thanks for joining me on today's show. You have anything going the rest of this week?
100%.
Anything going the rest of this week?
We'll figure it out. Not exactly sure. Probably going to do another show or two. We'll see. But yeah, that's the plan for now.
Jesse says, Allen, Herbert, Stroud, directly out of college. I trust my evals. Miss on Trey. Can't be 100%. Nobody is. All good, brother. Nobody's asking you to be 100%. Nobody should be 100%. If you look at NFL draft experts or NFL GMs, they take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud because their owner tells them to. So, hey, they were hella wrong on that one. We've seen a lot of other teams wrong on other picks as well. So, like I said, man, hope everyone has a great rest of their Wednesday. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button on Clutch Gene Sports. Go over to Rohan Chakravarthi's personal channel. Hit that like and subscribe button as well. And don't forget to have a great rest of your day. Give your loved ones a hug. Hydrate. Drink some water. Have a great rest of your guys' evening.